So a few years ago, I came across an old blog about a girl who disappeared in Long Island in 2010 after a disturbing and cryptic 911 call. And I couldn't really wrap my head around the whole story. I think the blog was missing some major pieces. So anyway, I kept the story in my files because I thought it was interesting and maybe more information would surface. So I have a lot of stories like that where like you're just waiting on more stuff to come out.
Yeah, our email is full of it. Just like constantly getting emails from Muriel's murders. It's just like, it's just stop. Just put them somewhere else, man.
Well, I do have a stupid way of doing this. Everything is on notes.
Yeah.
And I email myself any idea. It's like very, it's a pretty Wild West situation.
Yeah, our whole operation is ragtag. That's the charm, baby.
Yeah, raggedy,
okay,
man.
all right.
So anyway, I started watching the new Netflix series on the Long Island serial killer just out of curiosity.
Yeah.
And it opened with that same 911 call. So apparently there was a lot of stuff attached to that blog that I didn't understand, but it was really interesting. So anyway, I binged the whole thing. It was fantastic. And now I'm going to tell you about it.
Good. And the way I'm interpreting this is you had the idea before Netflix.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, we're just claiming it. Just claim it and move on. We were first. They copied us. That's cool. It's cool. It's fine.
Netflix is based on a book that's been in the works for a really long time.
Yeah.
So I definitely just did some like kind of sloppy internet combing and then forgot about it. But, but I'm really, I mean, I was like very excited to see this sort of weird brainworm thing that I had sort of pop up on this thing as it featured like
awesome.
the big tentpole moment, right?
Yeah.
So anyway, for this episode, I used Jacqueline Gallucci's reporting for the Long Island Press. She spent a lot of time writing about the unidentified murder victims on Long Island.
And her name is Jackie Gallucci, the author.
Jacqueline Gallucci.
What a good Long Island name.
I know.
I like her.
Robert Kolkers did a lot of reporting on the Gilgo Beach killings for New York Magazine. And he also wrote an excellent book called Lost Girls, an Unsolved American Mystery. So I read all the stuff that he wrote for New York Magazine.
Yeah.
I did read like half of his book, but there's too many things. I spent too long on this. I don't think I want to do like a great like sort of Cliff Notes version of the Long Island serial killer. And I was like, God, this story's so interesting. Just kept reading about it.
Right. So this is going to be a two-parter, right?
Yeah, this is a two-parter. I swear to God, not a 3. And after this, we'll start doing ones again because that's what I always used to do, right?
Yeah.
We'll see.
Okay.
Also, I did watch the 2025 Netflix docuseries based on the book called Gone Girls, The Long Island Serial Killer. That's directed by Liz Garbus. It's based on the book. It's an excellent docuseries.
Okay. Well, basically because of the names of the book and the docuseries, I'm going to not like this story at all.
It's kind of a hard one, if I'm going to be honest. I would say to be honest, I mean, it's weird to say that about true crime stories because technically they're all hard ones.
Yeah.
This one was kind of
it's brutal.
Pretty painful.
Sounds like it's
going
to be multiple dead girls.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right.
Well, buckle up, sweetheart.
For some reason, I keep subjecting myself to this.
Now you do your part.
Okay. We want to do a big thank you to longtime and brand new Patreon subscribers. Big shout outs go to Amanda, Beth H, Ellen Mack, a.k.a. Nellie Kate, MJ, and Lion Mom. Thank you to everyone subscribing to our free Substack, subscribing to us on YouTube, following us on TikTok and Instagram, subscribing to our Spotify exclusive channel. Thank you for sharing this podcast with the coolest people you know. You all are keeping us going, and we love you.
All right, this is a true story involving murder, drugs, adult themes, etc. So if any listeners are like Nick and they don't want to hear about those kind of things, go listen to a different podcast.
We are going to joke about this subject matter, and because that's just how we get through the world. That's just how we deal with all things. And we're going to curse. So if you don't like those things, go ahead and turn us off and just do something different with your day.
Okay, Nikki, are you ready to hear this story?
No.
Okay, let's get started. All right. This story starts on a barrier island on the far southern side of Long Island, New York. Now, Long Island, New York, Nick,
Yeah.
in case you didn't know, because I know you were born in Manhattan, but maybe you don't know.
I don't know anything. Obviously, I'm not going to know whatever you're going to say.
It's huge. There's about 8 million people that live there, and it's considered the birthplace of the suburbs, right?
Okay.
So it's kind of like a lot of working class neighborhoods. Well, it actually runs the gamut for all kinds of neighborhoods.
Yeah, you told stories where it's like they got lost in this expansive woods in Long Island.
Was it Long Island? Maybe it was New Jersey.
I don't know. No, there's like woods out there.
Yeah.
Anyways,
maybe
keep going.
New Jersey's on Long Island. I don't remember. Anyway,
All right.
It's really big. It's the most populated island in the continental U.S. It's sandwiched between Manhattan and then like the exclusive Hamptons area on the east end of the island. And just off the south shore, there's a long, thin stretch of barrier island that connects to Long Island through a series of bridges. This sliver of an island is essentially a series of tiny communities, like maybe 250 people spread across a handful of beach communities. And even less people are full-time residents. So there's a lot of vacation homes there. People on the barrier island, they're on the wealthier side, white collar for the most part, and almost entirely white, according to the latest census data. A single main road, well, I guess technically two, one going like a road going one way and one going the other. I don't drive, so I don't know what these things are.
So it's not a 2-lane road?
It's like two-lane roads.
Okay, so there's 2 roads.
There's 2 roads, but they're called the same thing. It's like one's going, north and one's going south. The Ocean Parkway is like what you call it.
You could like handle all these incredibly like intense conceps and
I don't know
intricate
what you call
storylines,
that.
and you're just like 2 roads.
Is it a highway? Who knows? Anyway, as a main road cuts through all the neighborhoods, a fairly desolate road called Ocean Parkway that's flanked on either side by thick, wild marshland, poison ivy, tangles of beach grass, and goldenrod, things like that. On May 1st, 2010, in the dark early morning hours in the gated community of Oak Beach on the eastern side of the island, 75-year-old retiree Gus Coletti heard a banging on his front door.
No, I don't like it already.
Gus opened it to find what he believed to be a terrified teenager. The girl was petite with huge, wide-set eyes that were fringed with fake eyelashes. She was wearing a short, honey blonde wig, jeans and a blouse, and big, dangly hoop earrings, and she was screaming for help. When Gus opened the door, he said the girl just darted inside his house. And Gus said he tried to calm her down, but when he said he was going to call the police, she just ran straight out of his house and into the backyard. And there, in the dark, the girl squatted down in the grass between Gus's boat and his car. And there she sat, crouched, frozen, staring down the road as if she were hiding from a monster.
I thought you say she was going to take a piss right there.
No,
She's just drunk and peeing. No, sorry, this is serious and she's scared.
Yeah.
Or she's the bad guy.
Well, you are really firing on all cylinders today. Lots of stuff. Whoa. Lots of potential things.
Okay, all right.
So Shannon Gilbert was 23 years old at the time and had come up from Manhattan to the remote barrier island for the night to work as an escort. Shannon was the daughter of a single mom. Her dad was a heroin addict, and he was long gone. She was the oldest of 4 girls and the only one to live mostly in foster homes. Shannon was sent into foster care at the age of 7. Her mom, Mary, said that Shannon was sent away due to behavioral problems. She had been diagnosed as bipolar by the age of 12, but didn't take her medication. She didn't like how it made her feel.
Yeah.
And Mary Gilbert said her daughter had mood swings and fought constantly with Mary's boyfriend at the time. That ended up being the same boyfriend who later molested 2 of Shannon's sisters. So Shannon's time in foster care was pretty good for most accounts. She grew up in the same neighborhood as her sisters, even went to the same school. And she'd been a bright kid. She was smart, talented, and popular. She graduated high school at 16. She loved performing, theater, and singing. And then after graduation, her forward trajectory kind of stalled out. She worked some dead-end jobs, chain restaurants and chain hotels. And she was trying to break out as a singer. So she started escorting at the age of 20 to earn money to launch her career in entertainment. Shannon moved to New Jersey and signed up with an escort service there. But it was a rocky launch. She was arrested on prostitution charges at least once. And at one point, she was beaten so badly by a boyfriend that she had to have a titanium plate installed in her jaw to keep the bones together.
Jesus.
2 years before Shannon disappeared, she followed the new trend in sex work at the time. Like tons of other girls, Shannon left the escort agency she was working with and started working solo, posting ads on Craigslist. So the escort agency always took a hefty percentage of Shannon's earnings. Going solo meant she made way more money, $200 an hour, with just a third going to her driver, who also acted as security. With the extra money, she moved out of her boyfriend's place. She got her own apartment in Jersey City and started online college classes. Shannon often spent huge amounts of money on her family, on presents for her sisters and their kids, and for her mother, Mary. You know, Mary worked at a Walmart. She knew what Shannon was doing to earn a living, but she said she didn't really know how to talk about it. She couldn't tell Shannon really what to do or to stop.
Right.
On Friday, April 30th, 2010, Shannon Gilbert left Jersey City and headed into Manhattan to work for the weekend. She met up with Michael Pack in Manhattan. This is a driver she'd worked with a few times before they knew each other. And they drove around the city without much luck. They didn't get any calls on Craigslist until a man named Joseph Brewer called, responding to Shannon's Craigslist ad. Now, Joseph Brewer lived in Oak Beach on that marshy little barrier island off the coast of Long Island. The drive was far, about an hour and a half one way, but Brewer said he'd pay Shannon for several hours and make it worth her time. So Michael and Shannon made the drive, getting to Oak Beach around 2 a.m. on the morning of May 1st. They navigated the SUV through the dark, remote, gated community and parked near Brewer's 2-story beach house. Joseph Brewer was a big, soft guy with salt and pepper hair and a stained polo shirt. He was in his 40s. He was an unemployed financial advisor who lived in his mom's old stinky cat house. And
oh no, a financial advisor?
His family had real estate in Long Beach and in Long Island, and they had money. Brewer himself had worked on Wall Street once, but that was just all gone with the wind. He hadn't worked in years. He had a young kid, a daughter, but he wasn't married, and he rarely saw his daughter. The girl and her mother didn't ever really come up to Long Island, and a disused kid's playset dominated his unmowed backyard.
Come on. Muriel, that's such a picture. That's so... Are we going to feel bad for this guy, or does he end up being a villain?
Well, my love is so full of questions.
I just I don't know how to judge that or not. You know what I mean? That's so intense. It's just like literally you just painted like the most intense picture of like an unemployed financial advisor who's living at his mom's house, and then the remnants of his children that he no longer see is still just like in his overgrown backyard. Like, what are you doing? Like you realize what you just did?
The picture
I know, but that's a crazy ass picture.
Well, let it wash over you, okay?
No. I don't want to sink into that.
Most of what's known from that night comes from Shannon's driver, Michael Pack, and also the 23-minute 911 call that Shannon made that night. The phone call is garbled and really cryptically hard to understand, and there are a lot of people who think or thought Michael Pack has never told the entire story of what happened that night. But here's the general idea.
Okay.
Michael Pack said he waited in the driveway for Shannon, playing poker on his phone to kill time. Now, apparently, some neighbors said they witnessed Shannon and Joseph Brewer briefly leave the house in Brewer's car at some point in the night. Michael says he doesn't remember that, but it tracked. He'd seen Shannon leave to score drugs during a call before. Now, according to her mother, Mary, Shannon wasn't into drugs. According to others, she was very much into drugs, but it's hard to know where the truth lies with that. Now, Michael Pack said he waited in the driveway for about 3 hours when at 4:50 in the morning, he was startled by a knock on the window of the SUV. And Joseph Brewer was standing outside, agitated. Shannon was refusing to leave his house. So Michael said they both entered the house to find Shannon confused and paranoid on the phone with a 911 emergency dispatcher. The 911 call lasted 23 minutes and it narrated Shannon's last moments. Now, people interpret this call lots of different ways. To most everyone, Shannon seems terrified. Some think she sounds like someone trying to nonchalantly hide their phone while calling the police. Others think Shannon sounds pretty high, like she's really out of it and high on drugs.
Yeah.
I listened to it and I read the transcript and I'm just saying, like, I guess generally the thoughts on it are.
Well, what's your personal take on it?
I think, and we'll find out later,
Yeah.
too, the FBI analysis also thinks that she sounds more like high or having some sort of like mental episode than she does sounds like she's dealing with somebody attacking her.
Yeah.
Like it doesn't sound like an assault or anything like that. That's how it sounds like to me. It sounds like somebody who's doing drugs or having a mental episode and like running off,
Right, because what was she diagnosed with at 12?
Bipolar. Yeah. And she was unmedicated for that. And like her mom says she doesn't do drugs, but people who knew her said that she spent a lot of money on drugs.
Okay.
So, let's see. I have to find my place. Well, this is the joy of recording on a video.
You got this.
At first, you can hear Joseph Brewer in the background trying to calm Shannon down. And Shannon seems really distracted. Like she isn't speaking directly to the operator. She's not speaking into the phone for a lot of the call, which is why it's hard to understand. And she just manages to repeat to the operator at some point that someone is after her. She says, she doesn't know where she is. She's just somewhere on Long Island. And she wants somebody to send police, but they can't figure out where she is. So after that, Michael Pack enters the house. And at this point, Shannon starts calling him Mike. And Mike tries to convince her to leave with him. But Shannon's confused and scared. You can hear them kind of arguing back and forth. And it sounds like maybe at some point they tried to lure her outside to trick her. Like, oh, I have to show you something outside. Maybe trying to get her out the door. And then there's sounds that indicate that they may have tried to wrestle the phone away from her. But eventually, in the background, you can hear Joseph Brewer announce that he's going upstairs and kind of washing his hands of the whole thing. And for a little bit, you can hear Michael Park laughing, saying, like, come on, Shannon, let's go. You're freaking me out. And Shannon kind of vacillates between asking Michael to take her home and then accusing him of setting her up, of having something to do with Brewer in this setup and that she's confused. And then that shifts to someone's trying to kill her or Brewer and Michael Pack are trying to kill her. So Mike, he tells her, hey, you're acting like Johnny Depp from Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas.
Good movie reference.
I know. He's like, have you seen that movie? That's what you're acting like right now. Yeah. And she keeps telling Mike, like, stop it. It sounds like she's telling him to stop, stop bugging her or stop him from leaving. Like he's acting frustrated and she's like, stop, calm down. And then there are sounds of Shannon running in flip-flops. Now, Mike Pack said she seemed totally out of it, refused to come with him. So he just went back out to the SUV and waited for her. He said at the time he thought she was high. And as soon as he got inside the SUV, according to Mike Pack, Shannon ran out of the house and down the dark road into the community. And Mike Pack said he followed her in the SUV. He said he had no idea what to do. Now, Shannon, it's all on this phone call.
She's still holding it.
She's still holding it. So dispatchers can hear her running alone in flip-flops like through the neighborhood. And she's running up to different neighbors' doors, banging on them and screaming for help, saying someone was trying to kill her. Now, based on the 911 recording, it sounds like Gus Coletti was the only person to respond to her, although several people called the police that night regarding this girl running around.
They just weren't answering the door.
Yeah, they weren't sure what was going on.
Right.
According to Michael Pack, he looked for Shannon in the gated community for almost an hour before giving up and going back to Manhattan. Now, from what I've read, this is probably the most contested thing in Mike Pack's account. Most people think he probably took off as soon as Shannon ran away. Like in this telling of this story, some people think it was really sinister. There's lots of conspiracy theories kind of rolling around about what happened. I feel like from what I've read, the majority kind of think at least the men like minimized or tried to kind of like say they did more than they actually did or minimized the way that they treated her.
Yeah.
Also, there was this idea that all of this is according to Michael Pack. If he had picked up Shannon in New Jersey and taken her across state lines to New York, then he might have gotten into way more legal trouble when the cops showed up. So like there's some speculation as to like, did he even pick her up in Manhattan?
Did he get paid for that night?
No, he didn't. He doesn't get paid until she gets paid.
Right. So that might be an argument for him actually looking for her.
Yeah, totally.
Because if she has the money, he's like, what the? I've been out here all night. I need to get paid.
Yeah, right. Totally.
Because I kind of doubt he would have left the dude without, like, what's his name? Joseph Brewer. Like, that guy, I'm sure, gave up the money.
Yeah.
Like I doubt the security was like, okay, just go upstairs, bye, bro.
Yeah, right.
You know?
Yeah, it's hard. Well, and that's a part of the whole conspiracy is like what happened to the money? Did they try to shake her down? I mean, there's lots of theories as to what happened. It's really hard to tell. Anyway, Shannon's boyfriend at the time, her new boyfriend, Alex Diaz, was the first to miss her when she didn't return to Jersey City. After a day or two, Alex started rooting through her stuff, looking for phone numbers. And when he called, he found the number for Michael Pack. And when he called Michael Pack, he was pretty pissed to find out that Mike was like, oh, I have no idea where Shannon was. Mike was supposed to be her security.
Yeah.
So how could he just lose her and have no idea, right?
Yeah.
Mike explained how paranoid Shannon had been, how she accused him and Brewer of trying to kill her and ran off into the night. But even after that, Mike was still surprised that Shannon never made it home. He figured she would.
Yeah.
So the two men sat on the phone together and Googled all the hospitals in the Long Beach area, in the Long Island area, called them on three-way calls looking for Shannon. They called Joseph Brewer, too. They found his number, who basically laughed and hung up. When Alex Diaz drove to Oak Beach, Long Island, in person to speak with... This is so funny. I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
I wrote Long Beach instead of Long Island every single time. It's blowing my mind.
You're the
so
West
dumb.
Coast girl.
I didn't catch that. I've read over this thing like 3 times. So I apologize for my stumbles.
Yeah.
So when Alex Diaz drove to Oak Beach, Long Island in person to speak to Joseph Brewer, Joseph Brewer was all like wrung out, unshowered, disheveled. He was wearing a dirty t-shirt and just like stressing that he had nothing to do with Shannon's disappearance. Alex somehow convinced Joseph Brewer to come with him to the Suffolk County Police Station to file a missing persons report. Mm-hmm. And the police were just like chuckling at the idea of Shannon running off, told Alex she'd probably resurface soon and he should go back to Jersey and wait for her. Alex did what he could to contact Shannon's mom and sisters, but they were slow to respond. and her case just kind of fizzled out.
I don't mean to laugh. I kind of snickered. Like, the only thing I was laughing at is this idea of Long Beach and New Jersey, like both looking down their noses at each other. You know what I mean? He's like,
Right.
oh, go back to Jersey and wait it out.
No,
pal.
it's really them looking down their noses
Right.
at sex work.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's the part I didn't mean to laugh at.
Yeah.
It's just, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I figured it was something different. So the case kind of fizzled out. There wasn't any news coverage or anything, no police search. And the local police had told Alex Diaz to file his missing persons report in Jersey, which was an incorrect instruction. And since there wasn't any report filed in Long Island, there was no police case there. Months went by before Jersey City forwarded Shannon's missing persons report to Suffolk County Police, and investigators finally connected that missing persons report with the scared Jane Doe on that confusing 911 call back in May.
Damn, months.
Yes. Michael Pack and Joseph Brewer were interviewed at this time. Brewer claimed they never did any drugs together, and he was really reluctant to talk. Michael Pack fully cooperated with police, although neither man could clearly explain what they thought made Shannon so upset in the first place. And both men, regardless of that, were fully cleared as suspects. After that, the investigation was lackluster at best. The attitude was basically, Shannon was a prostitute. She'll turn up eventually. Police didn't even ask to see the surveillance video of Shannon at Oak Beach until about 8 months after her disappearance. And by then, it had been erased. One thing, though, the Suffolk County Police Department was huge, one of the largest, most well-funded in the country. They had an extensive training program for police dogs, teaching purebred imported German Shepherds how to sniff for drugs, bombs, and bodies.
Imported from Germany?
Yeah, I think so.
Damn, I guess that makes sense. I just never thought of like the most hardcore German Shepherds actually coming from Germany. Like, why wouldn't they, I guess? But that never occurred to me.
The department used open missing persons cases as training for police dogs in searching for cadavers. And the summer following Shannon's disappearance, one officer was in the process of training his German Shepherd Blue to find cadavers. He looked at Shannon's case and assumed she was dead, so he used the opportunity to train Blue to search for her body. They tried in the late summer, but there was too much brush and poison ivy. They couldn't even walk through the marshland. So they came back in December when the foliage was mostly dead sticks to try and search again. And on the afternoon of Saturday, December 11th, 2010, along Ocean Parkway near Gilgo Beach, just 3 miles from Joseph Brewer's home, Blue sniffed out a skeleton bound at the legs and wrapped in burlap. Police called Mary Gilbert to tell her daughter, Shannon, had been found.
Oh, R.I.P.
Except,
Yeah.
it turns out they were a little hasty.
Not her.
After a quick look, it was obvious the skeleton didn't belong to Shannon. There was no titanium plate in the jaw. Suffolk County investigators had to call Mary back and say, whoops, false alarm, it's not your daughter.
That's not cool moves, bro.
It was an entirely different woman.
Yeah.
And then 2 days later, Suffolk County Police found 3 more burlap wrapped bodies on the same stretch of Ocean Parkway, just 50 feet from the road. And none of them were Shannon Gilbert.
Damn.
The bodies were all found about 500 feet from each other, about 50 feet from the edge of Ocean Parkway near Gilgo Beach. It basically looked like someone had just driven up and tossed the bodies from a car.
At the same time? No.
No. It turns out it was over like the period of about 3 years. The burlap wrapped bodies were identified as Maureen Brainerd Barnes,
R.I.P.
Amber Costello,
R.I.P.
Megan Waterman, and Melissa Bartholomew.
R.I.P.
All petite, around 5 feet tall and 100 pounds, all in their 20s, all had been working as escorts through online Craigslist and Backpage ads. And this was all a description that also matched Shannon Gilbert.
Right.
And it looked like Suffolk County police had a serial killer on their hands. Honking. I don't know if you can hear that. The girls found in December 2010 were dubbed the Gilgo Four. Maureen Brainerd Barnes was the first in the group to go missing way back in 2007. So Maureen grew up in a blue-collar town in Connecticut. She liked writing poetry and rap verses. She was a straight-A student until she got pregnant at 17 and dropped out. And then she bounced from job to job until she saw an online ad for modeling and applied. Now, this morphed pretty quickly from cute pictures to more erotic stuff and then escorting through an escort service. The money was incredible. It was better than anything that she had ever made before, so she continued to do it. And also, we're not going to get super far into it because it's more complicated and I didn't write everything down. But like at the time, there just wasn't a lot of work in her town and a lot of blue collar towns, you know, around this area.
Yeah.
So there, it wasn't just that they were all dead end jobs that she could find basically, but then there weren't very many of them. Like a lot of these.
Yeah. The 2000s was really rough on like
everybody.
Yeah.
It was right before the crash.
Right. And especially like small town America.
Yeah, totally. Maureen eventually started escorting as a duo with a good friend she met while working at a call center. And like Shannon Gilbert, the girls eventually realized they could make more money going solo. So the two of them stopped working through the escort service and started out on their own, posting ads on Craigslist. Maureen and Sarah would drive to Manhattan together. Maureen, who had been in sex work longer than Sarah, had all kinds of rules for safety. They always had phones, you know, on them. They texted updates, carried a pocket knife, and above all, Maureen said, always trust your gut. And Sarah said they were kind of like Thelma and Louise, that it was thrilling, that they were young and they were making more money than they had ever made before. And Maureen would tell family she was going to Manhattan for modeling gigs, but the escorting was kind of an open secret. People guessed.
Yeah.
In the summer of 2007, Maureen and Sarah had run into a tight spot. They were being hauled into eviction court after failing to pay rent. And Maureen's son's father was trying to use the situation to get custody of their kid. So Maureen wanted to try to pull together $3,000 that weekend, escorting in Manhattan to try and stop the eviction. So Sarah and Maureen went to Manhattan, but they missed their goal by a long shot. They had been actually paying this guy to post and refresh their Craigslist ads, because every time you refresh it, the ads would go to the top.
Sure.
And then they tried to like ditch that guy and go solo. And that guy saw them and started reporting their ads all weekend.
Oh,
like
damn.
all vindictive.
Yeah.
And so they kept getting their ads taken down and they just couldn't get any calls.
Damn, that's a shady ass thing.
Yeah.
Like, oh yeah, I'll post for you, and if you try to post without me, I'll get you reported.
Yeah, it's like, what was he even? He wasn't even doing anything, and he's like trying to get all this money.
No, it's just a manipulation. It's just a hustle.
Yeah. So anyway, they missed their goal by a long shot. Sarah said, you know, they realized they weren't going to beat eviction court, so they decided to just get makeovers and new pictures for their Craigslist ads. They went on a little shopping spree. They got her hair and makeup done. They took pictures, and then they spent the entire night in their makeup and new outfits, walking around Times Square on an adventure. The next morning, Sarah decided to go home. She had a friend who had driven with them down to Manhattan who basically pulled her aside and said, you know, I have a bad feeling about all of this. I want to take you home. It's time to go home. And Sarah listened to him. She trusted her gut and she opted to leave. But Maureen didn't want to go back to all the chaos. She opted to stay at the hotel in Manhattan and just wait for Sarah to come back in a few days. The last anyone heard from Maureen was July 9th, 2007. She called from Penn Station in Manhattan saying she'd been robbed and asking for a ride back to Connecticut. it was way too far. No one could go get her at the time. So Maureen agreed to take a train home. And that was the last time anyone saw her. After Maureen missed eviction court, her brother-in-law and brother went to New York to find her. They went to the hotel where she and Sarah had last rented a room. They showed her picture around, but no one knew anything. The police just wouldn't help. They went to almost 20 precincts and they couldn't even get Maureen's name on the missing persons database. In fact, they weren't actually able to get her name on the database until 2009, until 2 years later.
Damn.
2 weeks after Maureen went missing, Sarah got a call from a blocked number. The guy on the other end of the phone said he saw Sarah's ad on Craigslist and wanted to know if she was from Connecticut. He said he wanted to know because he knew this other girl from Connecticut. And then he described Maureen in detail. Her green eyes, her height, the details of her tattoos. And the man said, oh, and by the way, Maureen, she's not missing at all. She's just working in a whorehouse in Queens. And they never heard back from that anonymous man. For a long time, Maureen's family thought or hoped she was alive somewhere in Manhattan, but they never heard from her.
Yeah. I mean, did Sarah say like, oh yeah, we're looking for her, she's missing? Like, that's a weird also thing to be like, actually, she's not missing. And Sarah's just like, I never said she was. Like,
I think she did say that. I think he knew, like, it was either he had found out from them looking or she said something. I can't remember. Yeah.
Probably she said something like, yeah, that's my friend. Have you seen her?
Yeah, right.
It's like, yeah, she's at this place in Queens.
Yeah, right.
Okay.
Melissa Barthélemy went missing almost 2 years to the day Maureen disappeared. Now, Melissa had some wild times in her teens, but she straightened out by the end of her high school years. And after high school, she went to cosmetology school.
Got it.
To get her license. She got her license. But the license wasn't the big lift she was hoping for. Melissa wanted to make good money, but could only find work at a Supercuts. She moved to the Bronx in 2007, though.
Dude, Supercuts do business. I mean, I guess I don't know what big money means, but you walk past the Supercuts, there's a lot of... Those places do good.
I think she wanted to she was really into doing hair, doing weaves, doing more expensive dye stuff, like higher end stuff.
Right. Like these $500, $700 hair.
Yeah,
situations.
not like a $15 men's haircut, right?
Yeah, okay. All right, fair enough. Yeah, I can back that. I'll back off my Supercuts is cracking stance pretty quick upon further reflection. You just scratch the surface. One thing is why did I say that?
Yeah. So Melissa moved to the Bronx in 2007 for this great job. She worked. Mm-hmm. She decided to go work in a salon in the city, a job that she got through a friend of her boyfriend at the time. And she said her goal was to make enough money to open her own salon. Melissa started working as a prostitute around the time she moved to the Bronx. Her mom says she kind of thinks she didn't like Melissa's boyfriend and said she thought maybe what had happened was the salon was kind of a front to trick her into prostitution or something like that.
Sure.
But nobody really knows the details of that. She was 24 when she disappeared in July of 2009 after leaving for a date. The same month she disappeared, her 15-year-old sister Amanda got a series of calls from Melissa's cell phone, but it wasn't Melissa calling. The man on the other end told Amanda Melissa was dead, that he'd killed her, and the man knew some things about Amanda that he'd gleaned from Melissa's cell phone. He knew Amanda was Melissa's half-sister, that she was biracial. He knew what she looked like, what her name was. And he told Amanda he was watching her sister's body rot. There were 7 or 8 more calls in addition to that. Police tapped the phone and they traced it to Midtown in Manhattan, but that's where the trail ended. Afterwards, Amanda was so traumatized, she dropped out of high school and the family moved, worried Melissa's supposed killer knew where they lived.
Yeah, right. I mean, I definitely does know where they live. I mean, that's horrific.
Melissa's case went cold until her body was found at Gilgo Beach. Her family found out Melissa had been murdered, just like the rest of the country did, on the evening news.
Damn. That happens all the time.
Yeah.
You know?
It's horrible.
Sucks.
Megan Waterman was 22 when she disappeared on June 5th, 2010. Megan was raised mostly by her grandma. Her mom was an alcoholic who didn't resurface until Megan was around 15. When Megan was 17, she got pregnant and turned to prostitution to financially support her daughter. And Megan kept her sex work a secret, but she lived in a smallish town in Maine, and eventually her mom, Lorraine, heard rumors that Megan was a prostitute from a local grocery clerk. Lorraine had always thought Megan had been forced into prostitution by her boyfriend, Akeem Cruz, who also acted as her pimp. Now, Akeem did things like post Craigslist ads for her, refresh the ads, and then he also, always for safety, went with her on calls. Now, the last weekend Megan was seen alive, Akeem was out on bail after being arrested on drug charges. Now, he did go with her to Long Island for work, but for some unknown reason, the night Megan disappeared, Akeem had just left her to fend for herself in a room at a Holiday Inn Express in Hauppauge, Long Island.
Like in a way that he normally wouldn't.
Right. So the last image of Megan was captured on security footage from the lobby of the hotel as she walked out of the Holiday Inn alone. The area around the hotel was bleak, a mix of empty industrial facilities and scraggly, undeveloped land with randomly dumped garbage like stained furniture and construction waste. There were no other surveillance cameras. After Megan disappeared, her boyfriend went back to jail and wouldn't talk about it, and her grandmother picked up the mantle again, this time raising her grandchild, Megan's daughter. The final victim of the Gilgo Four vanished just a few months after Megan Waterman. So that means, like, in a sense, that there seems to be some escalation. It was one, and then 2 years later, there was another killing, and now we're seeing two killings in the same year.
Right.
27-year-old Amber Lynn Costello was living in a party house in North Babylon, Long Island. She had followed her sister Kimberly into escorting as a teenager. The girls grew up working class in North Carolina. When they first moved to Long Island, they were clearing $7,000 a week apiece, according to Kimberly, over $10,000 a week in today's money.
Yeah.
The sisters traveled up and down the East Coast working through an escort agency and lived with other escorts in a house in North Babylon, about a 20-minute drive from Gilgo Beach. Now, according to Kimberly, at first, it was kind of a crazy, fun roommate situation.
Yeah.
And then the drugs entered the picture in a big, big way, going from ecstasy to acid, then cocaine to crack. And finally, Amber Lynn bottomed out at heroin. Now, while Kimberly tapered off her sex work, she had a couple kids and she was kind of, shifting her life around. She even tried to encourage Amber Lynn to get into rehab and stuff like that. But, by 2010, Amber Lynn was so deep into her addiction, she was slashing her prices and doing 5 calls a night to afford the amount of heroin she was shooting. When Amber disappeared on September 2nd, 2010, Kimberly, her sister, never filed a missing persons report. She assumed Amber was getting high with someone and the police wouldn't take her seriously.
Which she's probably right.
The only people who did take Amber's disappearance seriously were, I guess surprisingly to me, but maybe not, they were just 2 friends of hers, a couple of dudes who just were kind of drugged out, hanging in the crowd at the spiraling party house in North Babylon.
Yeah. They're like, where is she? Yeah, they care. They care.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The bodies of the Gilgo Four were discovered just 3 months after Amber vanished, making Amber the most promising source for leads, like fresh leads in the investigation. And her roommate, Dave Schaller, thought he knew exactly who'd abducted her. So his story was that Amber Lynn was seeing a client at the Babylon house when she called Dave, her friend, terrified. And Amber had taken a job with the stipulation that she would only do some nude dancing. And the guy kept trying to touch her. And when she shut him down, this guy flipped out and Amber Lynn had to run and barricade herself in the bathroom. So Dave said he ran back to the house to try to help her along with another guy that used to hang out there. And they came face to face with this massive dude, a giant, like 6'3", over 300 pounds. Dave and another roommate went into one of the rooms. They got their pit bull out and, they started saying, we're going to sick this pit bull on you. Mm-hmm. And they were trying to push this giant dude out of the house. And he wasn't really fighting them, but he was standing sort of rock still, really focused in on Amber Lynn, kind of like a predator.
Right. Yeah.
Saying he'd be back. Don't worry. I'll be back, like that. Dave said the guy looked like an ogre with this big, thick face and these tiny, dark eyes. The man finally left and Dave saw his car. He said he drove away in a dark colored first generation Chevrolet Avalanche, the type of truck that was just not typical of the area. Mm-hmm. So then on the night Amber Lynn went missing, she got a call from a client offering $1,500 for the night, which was, over 6 times her rate at the time.
Point, yeah.
And if she stayed for 24 hours total, the man said he'd up the entire price to $2,500. It was so much money. Amber took the job, and Dave said Amber told him before she left that the client was waiting in his car just down the block. And for some reason, Amber left the house that night without her cell phone or wallet, something she never did, especially when her cell phone at this point was her only real link to safety.
Yeah.
Amber never came back from that call, and Dave was convinced she'd been abducted by the giant ogre-like man from earlier. But the police never followed up on Dave Schaller's story, didn't search for the truck at the time, and never questioned him again. Mm-hmm. After the Gilgo Four were discovered in the winter of 2010, Shannon Gilbert's mother pushed to reopen the search for her daughter. Shannon's mom, Marie Gilbert, was a hard-scrabble lady, single mom of 4 girls, aggressive, confrontational, tenacious, and a fighter in good and pretty off-putting ways. By then, the families of the Gilgo Four had started to...
Good and off-putting ways.
She definitely, would blow up. I mean, the author of one of our source materials, he was just talking about how she would just, blow up relationships.
Yeah.
You would just watch it in real time.
You need these people to work with you, and she's just going off.
She's a little hard to track.
Yeah.
So by then, the families of the Gilgo Four had started to connect, to form a group to advocate for their sisters and daughters. It wasn't that long ago, and I'm sure it's exactly the same today, but basically they were just being trashed in the media. They were sick of how the 4 women were being spoken about as if because they did sex work, they weren't important, and they wanted to be like, that's a job. It's not who they are. They're, sisters, they're mothers, they're, daughters, right? Now, Shannon Gilbert was still missing, right? She wasn't counted in the Gilgo Four, but there were so many similarities in their cases, and they were all dealing with the same police department. So Mary Gilbert joined the growing support group. And through the press, all the press that the group received, Mary pushed to keep the investigation into Shannon's disappearance alive. She was railing on the police. She called the Suffolk County Police investigation clownish. She accused them of lazy police work. That they were brushing off the girls' disappearances and deaths because they were sex workers. And, police kind of at the time just came out saying Shannon and the Gilgo Four engaged in risky behaviors and their deaths were a result of that. So basically, yes, there's probably a serial killer out there, guys, but if you're not a sex worker, you don't have anything to worry about. I was literally the gist of what was said at a press conference after they identified the
It's
bodies.
also like, just catch a serial killer and be famous for that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Why are we saying it's like you don't have to worry, it's not a big deal?
Yeah.
It's so disturbing. So in the spring of 2011, the FBI released a profile of the suspected Gilgo Beach killer, a white male in his 40s. They said he would be socially competent, devious, blend in well with the community. He probably had a family.
This is a psychological or whatever profile.
Yeah.
So they just got one of those FBI Mindhunter people.
Exactly.
Or whatever to come up with this. Okay.
Yeah. And so he might have a family. They think he's a family man, has kids. But, if he does have a family, the family is probably away often and definitely away during the murders. And he could easily be a Long Island local. Mm-hmm. The FBI also started tracing phone records. So they did find that all 4 girls had been contacted with different burner phones, like prepaid cell phones people can buy to make calls anonymously. And there was a pattern with these burner phones the killer was using. The calls originated either in Manhattan or in a small area of Massapequa Park in central Long Island. So based on Maureen and Melissa's cell records, now their phones tracked them both traveling from New York City to central Long Island before they disappeared. Mm-hmm. And then Megan and Amber Lynn both were last just seen in Long Island, in central Long Island. That's where they were before they disappeared. Mm-hmm. So the running theory was the killer was maybe living in central Long Island and then commuting to Manhattan for work. But despite Shannon Gilbert matching the profile of the Gilgo Four, people weren't really taking Shannon's case seriously. But Marie Gilbert kept pressure up on the police to find her daughter, and in late March 2011, they resumed the search for Shannon's body. On March 29th, Suffolk County Police found a 5th set of partial remains along Ocean Parkway. Then, less than a week later, on April 4th, police found 3 more sets of remains in one day, bringing the body count up to 8. On April 11th, 2 more sets of remains were discovered. Now, none of the bodies were bound and wrapped in burlap like the Gilgo Four. Mm-hmm. Instead, police recovered essentially what were discarded partial remains and body parts belonging to all kinds of different people. When Suffolk County Police made their announcement about the discovery of the bodies, they said they had 6 separate sets of remains in addition to the Gilgo Four, all found in the same marshy area. Mm-hmm. An unidentified Jane Doe was found first, then a second doe. The 8th set of remains belonged to a female toddler. The 9th, an Asian John Doe dressed in women's clothing. And the final 2 sets of remains found were the skull of a Jane Doe and a bag of dismembered limbs from a different Jane Doe. And none of the remains found belonged to Shannon Gilbert. And that's where we'll pick up next episode.
Just with a huge pile of dead bodies.
They're like all people that they're like, oh, don't look for them. They'll turn up. Like this attitude of that. And then they just.
Well, they did turn up, I guess.
Yeah. All just like 50 feet.
Okay.
From the parkway.
Yeah. I like how good. Way to deflect onto them. You're the one doing this in the moment, Muriel. This is on you. Don't. You're telling the story. Like, it's a huge. So there's just all these things. They're all discarded. It's all changed up. It's not multiple serial killers, or you wouldn't be doing it all in the same story. It's one guy or whatever. Is it the financial advisor? Unemployed?
Why do you think I'm going to tell you that? You literally have to wait like everyone else.
Oh my God. All right. The end. Thank you so much for listening to Muriel's Murders. That lady right there that you guys are looking at right over there, she did all the reading.
Did I do this the whole time?
You were kind of all over the place.
I was trying really hard not to do that.
Eyebrows up. Doesn't matter. Whatever. That's Muriel Montgomery, everyone. I'm Nick. Hi. I do all the editing and recording and uploading and producing and stuff. Find us at murielsmurders.com. If you did murielsmurders.com/support, you can figure out really cool, fun ways to support us. Yeah, we love you guys.
We really do. So
Mario Castellini does our theme music, and we've got a new theme song with Mario coming out real soon.
And if you're watching this and you want this right away, you're gonna get the part 2 up on Patreon and Spotify.
That's right.
Tomorrow.
Yeah.
I swear to God.
No, don't do that, Muriel. No swearing to God. We're going to attempt to get it out early for you guys.
We will.
And we don't swear to anyone. We promise nothing. But we're going to really actually try. So.
Yeah.
We are really, really going to try. We promise we're trying.
We are very good at trying.
Yeah. Okay. Are we both looking into the camera?
Bye.
Oh, and the police are here. Okay. Bye, everyone.